champions.
The most amazing day for the Leeds Rhinos.
Warrington dominating. Great try for the Robins. Huddersfield Giants take the points home.
He missed it! He's a poor lad.
That is one sensational try.
3 in a row, the Saints. The three-peat is achieved. An 8th grand final win for the Red Bee.
Well, you're very welcome to the last tackle here on the Sportsman Rugby League, our weekly show where we try to get through as much as we can from the greatest game. And joining me this week, former Scotland international Andrew Henderson and former England international Kevin Brown. Gents, some sombre news to start off with this week. We heard yesterday former Wigan Warriors and RFL CEO Maurice Lindsay has passed away at the age of 81, so our thoughts, of course, go out to his friends and family. Hendo, sad news, ultimately, though his legacy lives on, really with the competition that we've got and enjoy every week in Super League.
Yeah, no, look, it is sad news for the game. I never got to meet Maurice personally, but certainly from the times that I saw him or saw him interviewed, you could see the energy and enthusiasm that he had for our great game. And it was quite infectious, to be honest. I think he will be a big loss. He was certainly a proud advocate of the game, and I think he sort of tried to push boundaries and challenge boundaries to try and give the game a better platform. Like you said, he was the architect of bringing Super League to the screens, and like I said, long live the legacy on.
Yeah, Kev, we talk about rugby league being a little bit rebellious, a bit revolutionary sometimes. Maurice was certainly revolutionary in terms of what he did at Wigan and then Super League, and it is people like him that have shaped the sport as we know it today.
Yeah, definitely, and his legacy will live on. I think the professional game owes Maurice a tremendous amount of credit. In terms of leadership, he was exactly what the game needed, and I was lucky enough to work with him at Wigan when I was coming through a bit wet behind the ears. He had a few contract negotiations with Maurice, and let me tell you, he always won. So no, great bloke, and very, very sad, and a lot of the people in the game, crossed his path, and it was always positive.
Yeah, as I say, our thoughts go out to his friends and family at this time. Let's take a look then at the action from this weekend in the Betfred Super League. And Kev, come to you first, because it was a bit of a Kevin Brown derby and not quite a dress rehearsal of the Challenge Cup final, because I think both teams were keeping their cards pretty close to their chest. But Huddersfield, 2 competition points against Wigan.
Yeah, and it's important. It's important for the top of the league. They drop down now. Wigan off the back of that. Catalans move up, and Huddersfield, they're just there or thereabouts in that top 4. They're battling away with Hull FC. So it means nothing in terms of the cup final. It was different sides, but Ian Watson will be happy that a win's a win, and it gives you confidence regardless of the players who were out there. It was a solid game, and he'll be happy with that.
Endo, Ian Watson took last season to get to grips with Huddersfield, but they're a very different beast this year, aren't they? They look like an absolutely superb side at the moment.
Yeah, they do, and again, it's testament to Ian Watson, and it's testament to the Huddersfield club too for staying true and backing their coach. I think any coach that comes into a new club, he does need time to instill their values and their style of play, and also try and develop the current group of players that they inherit to see if they can sort of come with them on the journey, but also give them the time to recruit those that they need to carry on what they believe is right for that club and that team. And I think we're starting to see that with Ian Watson. It was at times a challenging season for him last year, but this year he's starting to bear the fruits of the work that he's put in last year to set him up for this year.
And then St Helens 24, Hull FC 10, Hendo. Well, question marks coming into that game as how St Helens would respond to really losing their first big game in a long, long time in that semi-final. They were pretty professional about it, very workmanlike, got a good win, and that looked like a team that were just sending out a message of, we're still very much the people that beat in Super League.
Absolutely. I think it's a great response from St Helens. We know that they're dealing with the injury issues at the moment within their team, within their roster. And like you said there, it was always going to be an eye on them to see how they would bounce back after that defeat. And Hull FC are playing fairly well as well at the moment. They're in decent form as well. So it was had all the ingredients for a fantastic contest. And it was a hard-fought victory, as you rightly said, for St Helens. But like I said, one that they'll be very, very pleased with.
And then Kev, Catalans Warrington for 55 minutes, a real game, Warrington right in it, and then something just seemed to happen, and all of a sudden you've got a 40 points to 8 scoreline.
Yeah, that's the worry for me. That they've conceded 40 points on consecutive weeks now, and like you say, Lewis, that it was 16 points to 8, and it was a real close game. After 65 minutes, they just capitulated and almost gave in defensively, and that'd be the biggest worry and the biggest issue, for Darryl Powell. That the attack's not firing, but defence is an attitude, and losing by 40 is very, very rare for a side of Warrington's calibre and expectations. But doing it 2 weeks on the row is definitely unacceptable. And
then another one of your former clubs, Salford Red Devils, getting a win, Kev. But if Rowan Smith didn't think he had a job on his hands when he came in, he'll know he has now.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just looking at Salford first, they've been particularly good over the last month or so. They could have potentially beat St Helens, Wigan and Leeds. They were very, very good against Saints and Wigan, and it was only a little bit of class from the classy Jay Field that knocked him off that day. But yeah, they were fantastic. I think Callum Watkins' form, Brodie Croft, he's one of the form halfbacks in the league. But yeah, Rowan Smith, I think he's come to Leeds. He's had a good look around now, and normally you get a massive change in momentum and energy, but you've just not seen that from Leeds yet.
Yeah. But what I do know about, from what I've heard anyway, about Rowan Smith is when he does come into an organisation, as he has done in the past, he likes to get in, he likes to sit back and observe for the first couple of weeks and really sort of get a feel for the people, a feel for his staff. I'm not saying he's not doing things behind the scenes or that, but he may not be as hands-on as people may have thought coming straight in. He generally he's quite an analytical type person, so he will like to sit back and observe and take those things in, and then he can start to formulate his plan off the back of that. It's just what I've been told previously, so that may be, you may not have seen the true stamp of Rowan Smith just yet.
And let's be frank, the head coach is not the only leader at a rugby league club.
True.
The senior players that have been there throughout this, they can't just sit there and say, we've got a new coach, things will turn around. They've got to take some responsibility. Well,
they've got to take responsibility. They've got a duty to themselves, to their teammates and to their club and their fans, and they've got to deliver performances, and ultimately they're judged on those performances. So the reality is, and especially when a new coach comes in, is you've got to have a little bit of that over the shoulder, thinking, oh geez, am I going to be here next year? If I don't start putting the shift in or delivering the levels of performances expected of me for this team, then I may be looking elsewhere for a contract for next season. So there's a lot of motivating drivers there for players to perform, and like you said, but they're going to need to get those performances on track soon, because they are being dragged into that relegation dogfight as the weeks go by.
And the cat really is amongst the pigeons now, Kev, because Toulouse 20, Wakefield 14. Toulouse getting that second win of the season, and they're going to make that place a tough place to go, and I'm sure that won't be the last game they win at home this year, and it sets up Magic Weekend beautifully, because of course they play Wakefield again.
Well, Endo's just mentioned that Leeds have been dragged into the relegation fight. They've just grabbed all the Wakefield Toulouse and pulled them right back in the mix. Toulouse could potentially win this week. They play Huddersfield, and obviously Huddersfield will have one eye on the Challenge Cup, so they win that. They're all, they're level on points with Wakefield. So, that was huge. And I think the way Wakefield are defending, we mentioned Warrington's defence, the way Wakefield are defending, I think nearly 170 points conceded in 5 games. It's a frightening number. And they need to stop that if they do want to avoid being in this relegation fight, or in fact, indeed being relegated.
Yeah, look, my concern for Wakefield is, with the finances and the resource at disposal, I'm not sure they've got the capacity to bring many more bodies in towards the back end of the season. But when I look at Toulouse, and I remember having a conversation with somebody earlier in the season, and I always felt, well, Toulouse have got the ability to bring people in. They've still got a bit of money behind them.
Well, that squad's not bad at Wakefield. It's a great squad.
No, I'm just saying, but sometimes when you're struggling a little bit, you need that bit of injection of fresh energy, and that's what Toulouse are now looking to bring. They've brought in the kid from St George, they're bringing in Corey Norman as well. Ollie Ashelbolt arrived only a few weeks ago. Hasn't he been a great buy for them? He's been in great form for Toulouse. So that fresh energy just gives you that driving force to carry on. And I'm not sure, Wakefield have got the ability to do that for the remainder of the season. But as Kev alluded to before, defensively they have to fix that up as well to start with.
Well, the final result for the weekend, Castleford 32, Holcale and Neil.
Wow.
What on earth's happened there? Because until Tony Smith made that announcement that he was leaving at the end of the season, Holcale looked like a playoff team elect.
Well, it is strange how it has really gone from one extreme to another, hasn't it, in recent weeks? They had some fantastic performances early in the season that picked up some brilliant results and had people playing generally really well, with a couple of those players in the England fold and England setup and the Combined Nations setup as well. And like you said, in recent weeks, it's just I don't know. It's like they've hit the self-destruct button. It's the performances have just not been anywhere near where they need to be. But it's a strange one. And where does the club go from here? I mean, this is the question, isn't it, for everybody? Is, you know, does Tony Smith see this season out, or do they look to make a change now for someone in the interim, or do they try and facilitate the move for Willie Peters a bit earlier than expected? That's the question.
Not a dissimilar situation, I guess, to the one that you were in at Warrington last season, where decisions about the next season and the staffing setup have been made far in advance. Does it change the psychology?
I'm not sure. It's different for me as a player. My mentality was always for the team, so it didn't really matter, you know, who was coaching. You know, I played for the team, and so that would have always been my driving force. But I mean, every player's different though. They've got different motivations and different drivers which inspire them to play. And you know, for me, I'd always have that. You'd hope that group of players at Hull Kingston Rovers, you know, as much as they'd want to maybe see Tony out for the rest of the season on a high, but also for themselves and for their teammates to do and try and create something special. You know, I
think it could possibly be disappointment because they were going like that, and the expectations are in a cup semi-final.
Yeah, the emotional
The players
side.
might just be absolutely dejected that he's leaving, and it can just take a little bit of energy out. But some of the tries that Castleford scored, they were lifeless, KR in defence, and Coote was back as well, so that's no excuse. But yeah, there's a few warning signs there now.
Well, that was this weekend in the Men's Super League, and in the Betfred Women's Super League, which got underway this weekend. We brought you St Helens versus Wigan right here on the Sportsman Rugby League, and I'm delighted to be able to announce now that this weekend we will have more Betfred Women's Super League action for you here on the Sportsman Rugby League. York City Knights versus St Helens should be a fantastic game. Saints obviously have set the gold standard in Women's Rugby League in recent years, and didn't look like that was going to change at the weekend with that win against Wigan. But York have their sights set on their crown, of course. They've brought in plenty of internationals, some real top-end talent from around the league. And we can hear now from one of those players that they brought in last season, Tamsin Redder.
York City Knights have invested heavily over the last few years, and with their brand new stadium and roster of international players, many are tipping them to do well this season. I caught up with Tamsin Renouf to find out all about the Knights' plans for victory. Hi Tamsin, lovely to meet you. So you were part of the Super 7 who all signed for York at the same time last year. How are things with the team?
I moved from Cass to York last year because my coach left Cass and moved to York, and it was a really big opportunity for me, and it's great at York. We've had quite a lot of new signings now, and I'm very settled there. Yeah, it's great.
So York are obviously one of the teams that are expected to do really well. What do you think you can expect from this year?
Obviously we've just narrowly missed out on the final. We lost by 2 points in the semis, and I think that's given us a bit of a boost to want to push on in the Super League even more, and I think we have got the talent to win these big games and give the top teams a lot of pressure and maybe ruffle a few feathers.
So, new big stadium, does it feel like home?
Yeah, it's great playing at the stadium. We've played quite a few double headers now, and it's been really good getting in with the men and like having big crowds as well. So we've been playing before the men at 12, and the men have been playing after us. So by the end of our games, we've nearly had like full capacity like with the men as well. So it's been really good to see that.
So we've got the World Cup coming up at the end of the year. Does having the 2 semi-finals at York add an extra incentive to try and be part of the team?
For me, it's not necessarily one of my main goals this year. I just want to go out and play consistently for York, and I think if that happens off the back of that, then so be it. But I think playing the best for my team is what I want to do this year.
So this season, who are the players who you sort of admire across your team and across the league in general?
Any woman who's playing in this Super League is a great advert for the women's game because they work so hard. We all have full-time jobs as well, so absolutely anyone. But personally for me, Amy Arcastle plays for Saints. I play centre, and I'm quite a few years younger than her. I think definitely in years to come I want to be a player like her, and I think this year I can show myself against her as well. So that'd be good.
What do you think about the media surrounding women in particular, the hype about this season?
I started playing in the Women's Super League nearly 4 years ago now, and the growth of the game has been unreal. Like it being live on telly, like I've played in a few broadcasted games now, and it's so much bigger and better than it ever was.
Yeah, that interview taken from our Women's Rugby League show, which is going to be a monthly feature here on The Sportsman, so that's still streaming on YouTube, so make sure you check that out ahead of York versus St Helens live on The Sportsman Rugby League this weekend. Kev, we were just talking off air about this. Saints, obviously, have set the benchmark in the Women's Super League, but there's going to be some fantastic athletes on both sides of the ball at the weekend.
Oh, it's great. I love how many people are watching the game now. I watched the Challenge Cup final. It was a superb game. Amy Hardcastle for St Helens, she's as good as anyone in that competition. So I love watching it. There's not as much wrestle. You know, it's open and expansive, and the participation levels of the women, I think it's fantastic. And you know, I think a lot of people are turning up to games now and really enjoying the rugby that's being played.
Hendrik Townsend mentioned it there, but we, of course, in a World Cup year, the excitement, especially I think in the women's game, just seems to be kind of building towards what should be a fantastic 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, you know, I'm really excited about this fixture with York and St Helens, because York will be still hurting a little bit from that semi-final loss to Leeds. They lost narrowly by 2 points, so they'll see this their opportunity to have a crack at the top dogs in St Helens. So it should make for a cracking game. And like you said, there'll be plenty of players on both teams that are in that frame for the World Cup come the end of the season. Yeah,
that game is live and exclusive across the Sportsman Rugby League this weekend. We've got you covered right across the board this year. It is your new home of Rugby League online.
You're watching Sportsman Rugby League. Subscribe for exclusive content.
Yeah, that's all to come right here on the Sportsman Rugby League. And in the Betfred Super League, we've got 6 more blockbusters on the way this weekend. There's some fantastic fixtures on the cards, which we'll go into in a second. But this round as well is a slightly special one, because it is the Tackle the Tough Stuff round. Rugby League Cares and Super League and the RFL are coming together in this campaign to highlight some of the pressing issues around physical and mental health. And I sat down with Paul Wood, former Warrington star, of course, very involved with Rugby League Cares, to just find out a little bit more about what that charity is doing and what this round is all about.
Yeah, Rugby League Cares is all about, you know, well-being and the fact that we can provide loads of different services, you know, within the professional game, the community game. We offer a mentorship programme which is for current players, former professional players who may be facing difficulties, or they may be looking for advice around the education, or they might be looking to set a business up, so we can provide them with a mentor, and obviously providing, you know, welfare within the game. So you know, we run quite a number of programmes to enhance the communities and enhance well-being in the professional game. So it's so diverse. The things that we can provide, you know, the simple things like, you know, providing grants so players can educate themselves, advice. It might be, you know, players need counselling away from the game because they've got stresses and pressures that are going on. But there's also positive things as well, helping people set their businesses up. It might be help people to create, you know, new relationships, whatever that may be. We can offer it through Rugby League Cares. So it's very, very diverse, the things that we can offer. The offload programme is a massive programme within the community that's started off to help men with you know, with mental health issues, and you know, we were struggling, and they come in and we give them, you know, coping strategies, and we help them look at themselves, and we look at, you know, creating a positive mindset. So although the offload programme is there to offload, it actually is there to provide an education, provide tools for the people that attend the classes. And you know, it's had great positive feedback, great reviews, and a great success rate, and that's now being delivered within the NHS. It's being delivered to women's groups as well as men's, so it's, you know, it's absolutely flourishing, and it's doing a great job so far. Yeah, if anybody's interested in the offload programme, then you know, there's all social media accounts, which is Rugby League Cares, through Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, and then there's obviously the website, the Rugby League Cares website, which will have all the information that you need on there, and the sign up form, so people can attend their nearest offload session. So they're run throughout all the country, and you know, very beneficial. I advise people to, you know, to go down and have a look. And one thing I would say is that you don't have to be at crisis point to attend these. You know, you'll get something out of them regardless of where you're at. So yeah, definitely have a look on the website and through social media channels to look at where your nearest session is.
Yeah, Paul Wood from Rugby League Cares there, and the Halliwell Jones Stadium lawnmowers in the background as well. I'm sure grounds can wait for the cameras to come out before they start cutting the grass. Gents, Kev, I'll come to you. We love the game on the field, we love rugby league, but how good is it to see the sport taking care of matters and the people involved in it off the field as well?
Oh, it's massive. I think we can see on the field it's progressed Super League since 1996 and when it started. But off the field, I think it's fantastic now that we're looking at mental health and breaking that stigma. And we was with Robbie Paul on Monday, and some of the stuff they're doing. I just remember a quote he said, it's what they're not doing. They're doing everything for players and people involved in the game. And it's massive that, in career transition, ups and downs, the mental health side of things, I think the more we talk about it, the better we'll be, and normalise it. So that it's great that the offload programme and what Paul Wood speaks about there.
You two have both obviously made the transition from player into retirement. Hendo, I'm not sure that you've ever had a proper job because you're running with us, but that is such a key thing, isn't it? Because rugby league is not a sport that pays its players enough to live off that money for the rest of their life.
No, you're absolutely spot on there, Lewis. And it's great that our game is now starting to put those plans in place for players to transition. The educational programs, even for the younger players coming through, is far better than it ever was. So it's great as a game that we have that. On top of that, with people like Rugby League Cares who are extending more support, not just to past players and administrators and coaches of the game, but also fans as well within the game. They're all some of these projects and programs, for everybody involved who support rugby league. So it's just vitally important for me now, especially when you see male suicides at an all-time high. And I like the way too, it's not just all about mental health. It is about physical health as well, because even for past players as well, some of us, the injuries that we take, our bodies do break down a lot quicker, and we can't maybe adapt to certain jobs or roles that we would have wanted to do. And so there's support things in places for those guys as well. So I can only say hats off to those who have been able to get behind this, create it and drive it, and long may it continue.
Yeah, tackle the tough stuff around in the Betfred Super League this week. A fantastic campaign, and let's take a look at the games then across this round. Six games, of course, Warrington Wolves and St Helens first up, Kevin. In previous years, we'd have looked at this as a real kind of 50-50 tussle, but it's going to take a hell of an effort even at home for Warrington against Saints, isn't it?
It is, and it's so important that they have a performance. They do want to win the game, and they'll be trying to win the game, but they can't concede 40 points and get well beaten at home against the arch rival St Helens. I saw a quote, Christian Wolf said that the squad are still very, very dangerous. If they all play to the potential, they'll go really close to winning this game, Warrington. But it's turning that into performance, isn't it? There's potential and reality, and at the minute they're just not performing anywhere near them levels. We're hearing all sorts out of the club that people are forgetting the passports. And at good clubs and top clubs, when they're performing, you just don't hear that. And at the minute, for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to be clicking for Darryl Powell and his men at Warrington.
Huddersfield versus Toulouse, Hendo. If you were Ian Watson, how do you play this one? Do you rest your key players, or do you give them game time and keep the confidence and keep everything flowing?
It's a tough one. For me, I think he did rest a couple against Wigan the week before, so I think you'll see those guys coming back into the frame. I think he'll want to go into the cup final with some momentum and confidence, because they're going to go into that final as the underdogs as it is. So I think he'll go there, because I think he'll also be aware too that this potentially could be a bit of a banana skin. I think if he goes in with an understrength side, you're playing against a Toulouse team that are hungry, that are desperate, that have come off the back of a really good performance against Wakefield. And I still think Huddersfield have got aspirations to finish in that playoffs as well. So I think you'll see a fairly strong side from Huddersfield this week.
And they have two teams that we're keeping a close eye on. Toulouse, of course, at the bottom of that table. Leeds versus Wakefield. Massive game at this stage of the season. Yeah,
and the result has huge implications for either side. If Leeds can win the game, the pressure that continues to put on Wakefield is huge. But if Wakefield can win the game, then Leeds are banging that mix. And we've already mentioned that Toulouse will go to Huddersfield off the back of a win, sensing a little bit of softness with Huddersfield one eye on the cup. So yeah, that game with Leeds and Wakefield, the result, I'm not sure which way it goes. I think Leeds at home are a bit too strong, but yeah, Wakefield have got a game in them too.
Friday night on Sky, I'm quite excited about watching this game on Friday, Kev. Salford versus Castleford. Salford, 2 really good performances without the win, and then got the win against Leeds. And Castleford with that 32-0 win against Hull KR. Both teams will come into this game full of confidence, and they both like to play rugby league, so it should be a belter.
Yeah, definitely. I'll echo that. I think Salford are playing as good as they have done, in a couple of years, probably since Ian Watson left. Paul Rowley's got all his main men back on the field. I think there's only Dan Sargentson out of that starting team now who they're missing. Ivor Levette's back, Callum Watkins back, so both back rowers contributing. And we mentioned before that the form of Brodie Croft, when he's playing well, that Salford team are playing well. But you look at Kenny Edwards and the Castleford team as well, they're on a massive high after absolutely demolishing Hull KR. So yeah, what a cracking game that's going to be.
Well, that leads us on nicely. Hull KR versus Catalans, Endo, and even though it is a home game for Hull KR, I fear for them, given what's happened in the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think, and rightly so. I mean, form dictates that, doesn't it? I think Catalan, they're moving along nicely in the Super League competition. I think they will go there confident of getting the job done. The focus for me this week for Hull KR has got to be on performance. Forget about the result. They need a performance. They need some sort of positive to build from, because, like you said, they were absolutely demolished last week against Castleford. They didn't show up too well in the Challenge Cup semi-final either. So they need a performance and to have some sort of positive to draw from, to build on, to move forward. Whether they get the result, they'll hope they'll get the result. I can't see it personally, but their main focus has to be a good performance.
And then rounding off this weekend, Hull FC, Wigan, Kevin. Now, we spoke about Ian Watson having decisions to make about what he does with that side ahead of the cup final. It's the same thing for Matty Peake and Wigan, isn't it? It
is, and it's a much tougher ask, in my opinion, travelling over to Hull FC. They're very inconsistent, Hull FC, for me. I think the continuity of the spine. I think Luke Gale needs to come back in there. I think the gamble that Brett Hodgson played didn't pay off at St Helens. They look void of ideas. So I think Luke will come back into that side, and they need a response too. So it's a difficult ask for Wigan, but like Endo said before, they rested a few last week, so I think they'll go all out for this game. And I think both teams, Huddersfield and Wigan, I think they'll go after the game early and try and rest them, at the later ends of the game. So this is set up for a good game, and Hull FC will, need a performance to get the victory.
Yeah, there's some absolute belters this week across all 6 games. We're running out of time pretty quickly, so let's take a look at the contenders for this week's Try of the Week.
Welcome to Try of the Week. I'm Ross Fiddies, and here are this week's contenders. Try number 1, it's the dress rehearsal for the Challenge Cup final, Huddersfield versus Wigan. It's out to Thornley, who breaks through the Huddersfield line. He's got Bevan French in support here, but that's a neat tap to the ankles. Great offload to Sam Halsall though, who touches down for Wigan. Try number 2, Wakefield on the attack against Toulouse. It's out to Lewis Murphy on the wing, and look at the acrobatics on that. To Cumbria for try number 3, Workington looking for their first win of the season. Sweeping pass to Will Tate on loan from Hull KR. He collects well and breaks through the line, and lovely dummy pass from Tate, who's back on the inside now. Evan Simons is in support. The pass is timed nicely, and he touches down for Workington. Try number 4, it's the opening round of the Women's Super League. Amy Hardcastle with the ball here. She bats off one defender and another. She's through the middle, and we've seen her do this time and time again. She's got support here, but she doesn't need it. It's a trademark try from the centre and a second of the day. Try number 5, back to the south of France, but to Catalan in full control of this one against Warrington. It was a short pass to Cassiano and the defence was sloppy. He's made some metres here, but Ratchford does well to stop him. It's a great offload to Morg though, and it's out to Legure, who gets it to Yaha with space out on the wing, and he dives over for Catalan, who take the win. And finally, try number 6, it's Cornwall versus West Wales Raiders in League One. Both teams looking for their first win. Mullally is brought to the ground by some strong Welsh defence. He gets up for a quick play of the ball though, and Cornwall remain in attack. But look at this interception here from West Wales. It's Shane Lee with the ball now, and we're still in the first minute of the game. He's too quick for the Cornish, and there he goes. He dives over for the Raiders. 6 tries, but only 1 winner. Head to the R-League app now to vote for your favourite.
There, get yourselves on the Owl League app and get voting for Try of the Week. Right, gents, thank you for joining us. It's gone very quickly, but there's been so much to speak about, and of course, next week we've got a fantastic Challenge Cup final to build up to. I'm really excited about that. This Sunday, right here, Sportsman Rugby League midday kickoff. York City Knights versus St Helens in the Women's Super League. That should be an absolute belter. That'll be a real test for St Helens. So make sure you join us for that, and join us next week. Of course, we'll be back building up to that cup final right here on The Last Tackle.